Seriously, why do we need HMs? Why can't my bird fly? Or why can't my fish swim? Or why can't my rock monster push this frickin' rock? I get it that these are added into the game to prevent you from progressing too far without the badges, but there are definitely better ways to do this. For instance, in Pokemon Heart Gold, Soul Silver, there is a strange tree that blocks your path. You can't cut it, and you must talk to a certain person to get a watering can to reveal the tree is really a Sudowoodo. Now that's cool, but trees in the way is just dumb. Now that Pokemon is in 3D, why couldn't you just sidestep by? Why can't my fire type just burn it down? Hell, there were better alternatives in the first game. I mean, seriously, the Snorlax blocking your way? Why couldn't they just do that for every single Pokemon game, where you have to find an item to get by a Pokemon blocking your path and then move on to the next town? It would work just fine, and you wouldn't have to bullshit because there's a tree in your way. Flying. I get it that they don't want you to just fly to each town and win every badge and win the game. They want you to explore. Why couldn't they make it so that you could use fly whenever you entered a new town and wouldn't need to win a badge to do what birds frickin' do? Surfing, diving, waterfall. I love how in Pokemon Black and White, there was an underwater temple thing you could explore if you had a Pokemon with dive. But dive wasn't an HM, so you had to find a Pokemon that knew dive or teach it to them. So they could have some segments that only certain Pokemon could access without needing to teach them HMs. Strength and Rock Smash. You have superpowered animal creatures at your command, and they don't know how to move a rock out of the way. Does that make any sense whatsoever? How does winning a badge teach a Pokemon how to move a rock? All strength does is make it so that you can move the rock. So why couldn't you just do that in the first place? Makes no sense. And it's bullshit how weak HMs are. Cut sucks. Maybe if HMs were good enough to use in battle later in the games, I wouldn't mind, but the fact that most HMs are weak and can't be deleted sucks. So, most people just resort to catching a shit Pokemon and carrying it around, so it can use HMs and they don't have to teach any of their actual party Pokemon any of those moves. And that sucks, cause don't you want 6 Pokemon instead of having 5 slots and one shit one with the HMs? Pokemon, please get rid of this feature in later games. Thank you. Dr. Fuji was a Team Rocket scientist that was one of the doctors responsible for creating Mewtwo in the movie. It is assumed he perished when Mewtwo escaped, but this theory claims that Dr. Fuji escaped after seeing the errors of his ways and became a person who wished to help Pokemon and dropped the doctor status, becoming Mr. Fuji. If this was the case, then the anime and the games may actually have a possible link after all. Now, Dr. Fuji does look very similar to Mr. Fuji, not to mention they have the same name, duh. But could Dr. Fuji be a relative of Mr. Fuji? Is he the reason Mr. Fuji wanted to help people in Lavender Town? Who knows, maybe. This theory about them having a connection could be true actually, but I propose there's more to it than just that. In part 3 I will go more in depth, but I propose that Dr. Fuji and Mr. Fuji are the same person, but in different universes. Dr. Fuji in the anime universe dies, but in the game universe Mr. Fuji survives and decides to help Pokemon instead, forgetting his old past. And it's also really fun to say the name Fuji over and over again. Okay, I'm guilty of using cheats. but I don't condone it. Unless you were trying to get those legendaries the damn Japanese won't let us have. Come on, guys, but I gotta catch 'em all. It's like they encourage cheating. All I ask is give other countries the same events as Japan, because everyone loves Pokemon. Anyway, I have this theory on here because I think it's funny when you think about it. All the stupid and crazy shit you can do with cheats, like running on water, walking through walls, capturing a trainer's Pokemon, finding any random Pokemon in the grass. And just imagine what that looks like to an NPC just watching all that shit happen. Yes, this happens. If you put a Wailord and a Skitty in daycare, they will make an egg. I don't even know why. What emerges from the egg is most likely an abomination that Arceus then banishes to a reality between Hell and Texas, where it lives out the rest of its life in solitary, until dying 1 week later. Pokemon for kids. Anyway, enjoy the hot Skitty on Wailord action. How is it you can use Hyper Beam in an enclosed area like a gym and you don't destroy a wall or the whole building? Why doesn't Flamethrower burn a forest down or Earthquake level an entire town? Seriously, I don't have an explanation. All I can assume is that gyms and other buildings are reinforced to prevent any damages, but other places I'm not sure of. Maybe knowing that every animal on the planet has superpowers probably made the people take more precautions for such events? But honestly, I have no answer to this. Let me know if you're smarter than me in the comments below. What are TMs and HMs? In the games, they appear as CDs, but in the scene when you teach the Pokemon, the TM or HM, they show you putting it on your Pokemon's head and them absorbing it. How does shoving a CD in a Pokemon's head teach it a move? Is there like a CD slot on their head beneath the fur? How? Well, I don't understand it. Maybe that's just like a metaphor for Pokemon watching a video or something and learning the move. But why is it up to Gen 5 you couldn't even reuse CDs? I don't know. Gonna need more help from the comments section. Help me, because science has failed. Well, just like how effed up people in the real world would have sex with animals, Pokemon trainers would probably do the same thing. Yes, it's fucked up and probably true. If fan art tells you anything, it's mostly just with Gardevoir. Now, it's not about having sex with other trainers and stuff, because that's still weird, they're 10. I'm talking about straight up people just fucking their goddamn Pokemon. A Poke fetish. Pokephilia. Just like people in the real world who get really lonely resort to banging animals. Like the mountain men, who just stand around all day, waiting, haven't seen women in years, and then they just say, fuck it, and he bangs his Geodude. Hell, people in the real world want to fuck cartoon ponies. Jesus. And seriously, what the fuck were they thinking with that Pokemon on me? My god, the creepy shit there. Fuck, it's like molesting a goddamn Tamagotchi. Just not a good idea. Don't ever bring that feature back. Anyway, getting a little bit sidetracked. So, I haven't presented any evidence, and you wouldn't think there'd be any evidence in the games or anime, right? Ha! They totally do, actually. In Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, go to Canalave City Library. Go to the top floor and read the stories from the books on the shelves. In one such story, it states, there were once Pokemon that became very close to humans. There once were humans and Pokemon that ate together at the same table. It was a time where there existed no difference to distinguish the two. Now this is referring that at one point Pokemon were indistinguishable from human. There are a lot of human-like Pokemon in the games after all. But actually in the original Japanese, the first line actually implies that humans used to marry Pokemon. Yeah. So that explains human-like Pokemon, doesn't it? And in the Pokemon anime, in the first movie, there's a scene where the camera is panning to Ash and friends, and you can hear a lady's conversation state, and she says, "No, but I have Krabbies," then laugh hysterically. So, does that mean she caught the Pokemon Krabby, or a disease called Krabbies? Innuendo. Maybe Pokemon carry STDs. Or it's a really inappropriate joke for kids to not get for like 10 years, but whatever. So, is there Poke-porking in the manga? Duh, it's Japan. The headline in a newspaper reads, "Shocking case of Poke love. That's the last bath I'll take with my Tentacool." Wow, a hentai reference. Not to mention the newspaper is called We Heart Pokemon. Makes you kinda wonder who's buying and reading that. All better. In Pokemon X and Y, there's a point in the game where you must visit a strange house near a playground in a spooky swamp. Inside the house, you run into an old man that tells you the tale of when he saw ghosts of a horde of faceless men. He will then ask for a tip, to which anyone who played the game will say, "Fuck you." But think about it. Why did the developers want you to go here and hear this old dude's story before moving on? I think this story is a hint to a possible Pokemon you can encounter in the game. But what Pokemon? Well, we know whatever Pokemon he ran into. There were 5 of them, because horde battles consist of 5 Pokemon. So he ran into 5 faceless Pokemon. But what could they be? There aren't a lot of Pokemon that lack facial features, and the ones that do make no sense for the area. So what could he have seen? Well, I believe there's a clue in his story. It was a dark and stormy night when he came across the old house. Perhaps what he mistook for 5 faceless men could have been this. That's right, Zygarde. Zygarde is still a very mysterious Pokemon, and its silhouette definitely looks like 5 faceless men. If you saw that in a dark, stormy night, you would be scared. However, there's only one really big flaw to this. The strange house is on Route 14, and Terminus Cave is really far away. And how exactly did Zygarde fit into the house? He's a 16-foot tall snake thing. Did he like slither in? I guess that's one thing Pokemon X and Y doesn't do. Explain anything. How do fish Pokemon function out of water? How do Pokemon have unlimited supply of water? Does every water Pokemon have gills? Speed round. They don't if you've seen the anime. No, they need to drink the water to get it back. Some do, others don't need them. Huh. Yeah, I kinda half-assed this one. Brock leaves Pokemon during the Orange Island season. Seriously, fuck you, Tracy. Anyway, he decides to stay with Professor Ivy, who he falls in love with. So, everyone assumed that Brock had finally met the love of his life and would no longer be a woman-obsessed man when he came back to the series. And we were wrong. So it turns out it didn't go so well with Ivy after all. Well, actually, that's an understatement. Whatever happened with Ivy traumatized Brock. Anytime someone mentions her name, he curls up into a ball. Brock used the fence curl. So, wow, what happened? Well, here are pretty much a list of all the theories people have came up with. She was married, cheated on him with Professor Oak, she's really a man, she got pregnant, and Brock didn't want to handle the responsibility, so he took off. Maybe she conducted experiments on him. Maybe she died. He rejected her. She was a Team Rocket spy. She had a weird Pokemon fetish. She hooks up with an old lover. She was too messy for Brock to deal with, and that she was too old for him. Wow, more theories than for Lorelei. Unless... Nah. Wow, so many theories. How will I ever get through them all? Unless another speed round! No ring on her finger, Brock still gets along with Oak after. No dangly parts, that's racist. Not her field of study, he doesn't cry, he cowers. Very likely Brock reacts that way to all rejections. Not likely since Team Rocket isn't really mentioned in that season. Probably. Brock cleaned her whole house before, so I think he could deal with it, and I don't think Brock would mind, but she might have. Whew! No more speed rounds. So what's the real reason? Well, it's quite simple. Brock was taken out of the anime because they thought he would have been a racist Asian stereotype. So they paired him off with Ivy, until it was safe for him to come back. Realizing that nobody really cared about his race, so they just brought him back and they never really thought of a reason why they broke up. Yeah, that was a bit lackluster. I want to go back to thinking she has a penis. Dragonite is a dragon. Okay, but Charizard is not a dragon. That's Pokemon logic. Well, that's a very simple answer to why this is. Dragon type was very overpowered in the first Pokemon game. So, yeah. Weak only to ice and other dragons, Charizard would have been too overpowered to be a starter. Well, in the games he's known as Blue or Green, but when I play I always name him Gary. But I digress. You don't like Gary. He's your rival. But remember, Gary's an orphan, raised by his older sister and his grandfather, Professor Oak, who doesn't even know his name, or his gender for that matter. He set off the same day as you on his Pokemon journey, and even picked a type advantage over you. But he could not defeat you. This sparks your rivalry. A rivalry you've had since childhood. He battles you whenever he runs into you, yet you refuse to let him win. He tries to push his Pokemon harder and harder. You must be better. You must be better than that no-good trainer Red. His Pokemon begin to break. They've been working too hard. But Gary never notices. However, one battle aboard the SS Anne ends up taking the life of Gary's precious Pokemon, Raticate. It was his first Pokemon he caught on his own. He takes him to Lavender Town to put him in his final resting place. And who's to show up but you, the person responsible for it? He battles you only to lose again. The death of his Raticate, added to the fact that he is beaten by the person who put him in the grave, changes Gary. He forgets the times of his youth when Red and him would play games together. He forgets family. He removes all emotions to focus on becoming the champion. If he can't beat you, then he'll beat you there. Minutes after becoming the champion in a gruesome battle, who is to arrive? Red. Finally, the final battle. A tough battle ensues. It's the closest Gary has ever came to beating you. It's close now, but alas, he loses for the final time. Right at that moment, Professor Oak, who had came to celebrate Gary's victory, Gary's only father figure, scolds Gary for pushing his Pokemon too hard, and personally walks Red into the Hall of Fame, while Gary stands there, spirit broken. Or if you name your rival Dumbass, just substitute the name for that. So can Pokemon talk? Yes, they're just egotistical and just want to talk about themselves all the time. That was a joke. Okay, well, yes, a Pokemon can learn to talk, if given the right training. Chadots can copy their master's words like a parrot. Not to mention, in the anime, most legendaries can talk. Meowth can talk, a Slowking in Pokemon 2000 can talk. Lucario can talk. Pokemon can talk. Just need trainings, that's all. Legendaries are, well, legendary, so Meowth taught himself to impress a girl. Slowking is just wicked smart and just learned it. And Lucario, I guess, could communicate through telepathy, like a majority of other Pokemon. Actually, there's a lot of cases of talking Pokemon throughout the games and anime, and I don't have the time to list them all. Go look them up for yourself if you want. Wow, I talked about how people didn't know what Pokemon was going to be, but looking at the early concept art, I could see why. Pokemon definitely had many changes from the original art. Some definitely for the better. Like how trainers appeared to be using whips to train their Pokemon. That seems a little too Team Rocket-esque, if you ask me. And North American consumers definitely would have seen that as animal abuse. Or at least more than they already thought it was. These concept arts prove that Rhydon is actually the first Pokemon ever designed. Speaking of which, we talked about in part 1 about how people mistook Merrill's original artwork to be a variation of Pikachu, along with Pikaflare. Along with those are a disgusting looking Chikorita and an unknown seal Pokemon. Actually, some of these original designs are pretty cool, like this weird dragon thing, which might have turned into Gyarados, and this monkey with a hat. I'd play as that. Torchic's original design had ear wings. Not to mention, Blaziken was meant to look like Latios and Latios. Anyway, some remaining features like shops and trading are depicted along with Pokemon's stats and battles. Quite frankly, the original concept looked more adventure-oriented than the game we got, but that didn't stop anyone from buying it. Besides, Capsule Monsters isn't that fun of a name to say like Pokemon is. I actually used to think this was true. James did seem flamboyant or very eager to wear women's clothing. Opposite to that, I used to think Jessie was a lesbian. Anyway, there's one thing for sure. James is a very sensitive man who at one time really loved Pokemon. He wanted to be a Pokemon trainer when he grew up, but he grew up in a wealthy family, so he was not allowed. Also, being in a wealthy family meant he was arranged to be married. He didn't want to marry her, so he fled and had to join Team Rocket to survive. Now let's look at the facts. Sensitive, flamboyant, grew up in an oppressive wealthy family, forced to marry against his will. All these facts could point to him being gay. Being in a wealthy family, he may have repressed his homosexuality. Being forced to marry a woman made him realize he couldn't hide it anymore, and he had to flee. So, could this theory be true? Well, in regards to the arranged marriage, that bitch was cray-cray. And yeah, it could be true if we ignore the manga that ends with James and Jessie becoming a couple and Jessie becoming pregnant, well, it's not canon, but I think Jessie and James will eventually hook up in the anime. That or James and one of his grass-type Pokemon. Actually, this is a good question. It's never been referenced whether or not you can catch a person in a Pokeball. Maybe there's a certain code that the Pokeball is able to read that prevents it from catching people. Or maybe you can and you just need to knock a guy's HP down low enough. This theory is funny. As you know, lemonade costs more than a TV, but healthcare is free in the Pokemon world. Seriously, get your shit together, Obama. However, it is believed that all drugs in the games are actually allowed to be given to your Pokemon to enhance performance. Drugs are used in the game to make your Pokemon high, so it fights better. If your Pokemon is low on HP, give it a potion and it will snort it and get back to battle. Revives are like adrenaline shots that wake the Pokemon up when defeated. PCP is rare candy that causes your Pokemon to level up by believing it's invincible. Now, at least every medical item in the Pokemon game is a legal real-life drug attached to it, but I don't feel like listing them all. Needless to say, to become a Pokemon Master, don't do drugs. But take your own advice there, Ash. This is a small theory that I think is kinda cool. This is actually the only theory that doesn't have to do with the Pokemon games, manga, or anime. This theory is for Super Smash Bros. Melee! In Melee, you can unlock a Pichu as a playable fighter, and it sucks. It does damage to itself every attack. How useful! Anyway, the theory claims that Pichu in Melee evolves into Pichu in Brawl. The reason is that the character select screen, you can change your character's color, and if you make Pikachu blue, he wears the same blue goggles Pichu wears in Melee. And that's about all the evidence there is. I don't know, I like this theory. Kinda cool to think that Pichu is technically in Brawl after all. Not that you wanted it, but... Ash's Pikachu has been in every episode since the first episode, and pretty much every battle, too. So starting in Kanto and going to the current region of Kalos, what level would Pikachu be at this time? Well, in Kanto alone, to reach the Pokemon League, you'd need a team at least a level 50 to 70, so that alone proves that Pikachu is past level 100 by now, right? Well, I have a theory on what level Pikachu is. 0. You might be asking, what the fuck, how? That's wrong. What's his face proves it. Is it 'cause Ash is in a coma? Hey, Adamsmasher, you slept with my sister and never called her back. All great questions. But here's why my answer is 0. In the Pokemon anime, Pokemon levels don't exist. Not once are levels mentioned throughout the series. Pokemon in the anime just evolve whenever they feel like it, pretty much. So in the anime, at least, it's not about size of the level, it's about the love of the Pokemon. Seriously, call my sister. Red is the best. He defeated Team Rocket, beat the Elite Four, and captured all the Pokemon in Kanto. So, what is there to do now? Well, some people believe that Red then moved to Johto to train, which explains his Espeon that he has when he battles you in Pokemon Crystal. However, he has a Snorlax instead in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So he goes to Mount Silver to train. He awaits a challenger on top of the mountain worthy of battle. When Gold or Crystal arrive, he challenges them. And when he loses, he vanishes. But how did he vanish? If he had flown away, you would have seen the animation of it, but there's none. He just disappears. Would that mean he's a phantom? That his spirit is trapped until he can find a worthy trainer to set his spirit free? His spirit refuses to move on until he finds a worthy trainer to replace him. Or maybe since Red says he doesn't believe in ghosts, maybe he doesn't know he's dead. However, there are flaws with this. When you travel to Pallet Town and talk to Red's mother, she says he must be off training and doesn't show any concern whatsoever for her son. Maybe she doesn't know he's dead or doesn't care. She did send him off on his own at age 10 without a care, so maybe. Not to mention, it's cold on Mount Silver, and he's wearing short-sleeved shirt, so did he freeze to death up there? When you talk to Ren on Mount Silver, he replies... Ren never speaks in the game, so you can't really use that as proof for him not being alive, but if he's a ghost, then does that mean his Pokemon are ghosts too? So I don't think he's really dead, and besides, he appears in black and white too, so nope, not a ghost. Maybe a robot. But there are some real ghosts that appear in the Pokemon games. But first... So are clothes attached to Pokemon? Are they made by the Pokemon? As I mentioned in number 69, there was once a time when humans and Pokemon were very similar, that they couldn't be distinguished. Maybe around this time human-like Pokemon began to wear clothes to act like humans. Eventually the clothes became a part of the Pokemon, I guess? I don't know. Maybe the Pokemon government is going around making sure all the human-like Pokemon cover their naughty bits. Okay, let's add some atmosphere to this. Good. Now to clarify, I'm not talking about ghost types. We know they exist. I'm talking about human ghosts. I don't know why, but in all games in every region, there have been ghosts. Starting with Gen 1, Lavender Town. There's a lady that asks if you believe in ghosts. If you say no, she mentions a white hand on your shoulder. And the Marowak ghost at the top of the tower that requires the Sylph Scope. I guess Gen 2, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, they kind of break the rule, but I can't remember if there's any there. Next, in Gen 4, the old chateau. This one caught me completely off guard. When you walk into the dining room, an old man glides into the kitchen. Now, there's nowhere he could have gone from there, so he must have been a ghost. Next, you encounter a little girl in the room beside you, but when you enter that room, she's not there. You don't see her move, so there's no way she could have ran out the door before you got there. There's a theory about why there's a Rotom there and how the house got abandoned, but I think I'll save that for a standalone theory. Next, in Gen 5, you see a woman standing next to a man. that just vanishes. Her story is expanded upon in black and white too, when you visit the strange house. In the house, the furniture moves to block your path, and when you get to the ghost girl, she relives her final moments. Later, she gives you the lunar wing, stating she won't need it anymore, meaning she died before it could have been given to her. The lunar wing is used for those who are attacked by Darkrai, which implies that she was murdered by the Pokemon, plunged into a never-ending nightmare before eventually giving up and dying. In Pokemon X and Y, we all know about the "you are not the one" ghost girl that appears. She's also been speculated to be the same Hexmaniac-like girl in the hotel. Who is she? The ghost girl also makes an appearance in the new Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, Omega Ruby, the Gen 3 remakes, at the top of Mount Pyre. Speaking of those games, when battling the Elite Four member Fiona, right before the battle and the screen fades black, there's a quick instance of a little girl sitting in a chair in the background. After the battle, she appears again, right beside you, staring at you. The anime has two references to ghosts that I can recall. The first being the ghost of Maiden Peak, and the second being the ghost girl that tries to lure Ash and friends into the ghost world. Where's Danny Phantom when you need him? Oh yeah, Nickelodeon. So why so many spirits? Well, in the Pokemon world, when you die, your spirit may become a ghost type. There are many Pokedex entries that talk about humans transforming into ghost Pokemon. Vantrump is the spirit of children lost in the forest. Honedge is a sword with a person's spirit inside of it. Frostlass is a woman that died in a blizzard. And Spiritomb houses many human spirits. Yamask holds a mask of what its face used to look like when it was alive. And Cofagrigus may hold the dead body of himself inside. Japan believes that everything has a spirit, so ordinary objects can become vengeful spirits if mistreated. So it carries over to the games, like Bannet. It was once a doll, and now it wishes to kill its former owner that abandoned it. Hell, maybe a connection with Gengar and a dead Clefairy. Many, many more examples, but if I missed any major ones, let me know. All this paranormal stuff is a little too spooky for me. The theory claims that Parasect isn't what he appears. In fact, we've been looking at him all wrong. The bug isn't the Pokemon is the mushroom. Yep, that's right. Now, as a Paras, the mushrooms on his back doesn't have enough control of its body. However, when the mushroom grows strong enough, when it evolves, it takes complete control of the Pokemon's action. Hence why its eyes are whited out. It's practically a zombie. The Pokemon X Pokedex entry pretty much summarizes this theory. A mushroom grown larger than the host's body controls Parasect. It scatters poisonous spores. Parasect may be inspired by the, and I will butcher this name, Ophiocordyceps campanatibauzani fungus. Thanks, science. Anyway, it affects the minds of ants and makes them climb really high so the fungus can reach more light to grow. This eventually kills the ant while the fungus grows out of its head. That is scary as fuck. The fungus on Parasect is forcing it to battle, using it as a shield, using it to drain life from other Pokemon to keep it growing, using it to spread its poisonous spores across Kanto, creating more, creating an army, to start the Great Mushroom War. Oh wait, that was something else, never mind. But still, don't do mushrooms. They make you into zombies. How does Dugtrio use fly? Why can't Scyther use fly? But a Spearow can while carrying a 10-year-old. Or Rhyhorn, Snorlax, Hariyama, or Barrel use Surf. And if you use the Teach Any Pokemon Any Move cheat, then you can make your Mudkip fly. So how does Dugtrio fly? 'Cause he has no wings. Well, maybe he's just jumping really high and using his tail feathers to glide? Not technically flying, but I can't really think of a better reason, quite frankly. Scyther actually has wings, so why can't it fly? Well, I actually have a theory on why that's probably wrong. What if the reason you can't teach your Scyther to fly is if you fell, he wouldn't be able to catch you. Most bird Pokemon have strong talons, which they could probably grab you, but Scyther, well, if he attempted it, he'd probably cut you in half, if you know what I mean. That, or there's a conspiracy for flying bug types. I don't know. So why do non-water type Pokemon use Surf? Well, actually, there's no specific rule stating Surf must be used by water type. That doesn't explain why Pokemon that have weaknesses to water are able to use Surf in water. And Hariyama, I guess, is technically a sumo wrestler, so he'd be able to swim through water, I guess, pretty easy. And Snorlax is fat as fuck, so he'd probably just float in the water. But Barrel is a beaver, so that makes sense. Most people use it as a shit Pokemon with all the HMs anyway. But if you use cheats to teach a Pokemon who has no wings, or a Pokemon that can't swim, or a weak Pokemon the ability to move stones and break rocks, the HMs Fly, Surf, Strength, and Rock Smash. Would a Caterpie sprout wings? Would Charmeleon ride the waves? Would Sunflora just grow muscles and break a rock? Or would Cherim use a hammer? I don't know why HMs work the way they do, but TMs work the same way too. Seriously, how the hell does he use Ice Punch? There's a lot of odd things in the Pokemon world, but if we just got rid of HMs, we wouldn't have this problem. In the Pokemon world, there are very few Pokemon that have ever killed humans. Kyurem and Darkrai. But who's to say there aren't fatalities every time you use Earthquake or Eruption or Surf? You could unknowingly be causing countless deaths by Pokemon battling. Knowing how strong Pokemon are, it is possible to kill one, right? Yes, it certainly is. Marowak was murdered by Team Rocket grunts in Pokemon Fire Red, Leaf Green. In fact, Lavender Town has a whole tower built to house all the graves of dead Pokemon. In Canalave Library, seriously, if you've never been here, check it out. There's a story about a man who had a sword and was going around cutting up Pokemon until a mysterious Pokemon appeared and told him he should never use weapons again, which is why weapons actually don't exist in the Pokemon world. However, some people apparently didn't get the memo. People eat Pokemon, so they'd have to die then, right? What about when a trainer can't reach a Pokemon Center when their Pokemon is poisoned? To you, your Pokemon just faints, but what if days, weeks, months, years go by and your Pokemon is still poisoned inside their Pokeball? Are they alive? What if your Pokemon can't die so long as it's in a Pokeball? Maybe Pokeballs freeze the dying process until you revive it at a Pokemon Center, or use a revive. Maybe your Pokemon die every time they faint and are brought back to life by the machine Nurse Joy uses. Maybe all those Pokemon you defeat in the tall grass actually die because they can't reach a Pokemon Center, or are eaten by predators. That would explain why you can't catch fainted Pokemon, because they're too far gone to catch. So yes, Pokemon die. Yes, you can kill Pokemon. But more importantly, Pokemon can kill you a whole lot easier. So I wouldn't try it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry I did not get this video out 3 weeks ago. Shit. I had my wisdom teeth pulled last week, and my mic, as you can tell in the point of the video where the audio got loud, wasn't working properly. So yeah, I've also been sick too, but I'm not complaining. Over the break between videos, though, we first reached 500 subscribers, and we reached 600. Now we're at 700, going on 800. I mean, I can't even keep track. It's getting pretty crazy, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I actually just so happened to get this video done today, of all days, July 4th. What do you know? The day when the Earth was attacked by aliens. And then brave American pilots flew planes up and destroyed the alien ships. And because of that decisive battle, we as Americans were allowed to put hot dogs on our pizzas, to listen to awful rap music, and to continue to be the most hated nation on the face of the earth. Okay, so that about does it for me. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for part 3 coming next week. And I'll leave you guys with a speech from President Bill Pullman from the movie Independence Day. So, like, subscribe, and stay alive.
Perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July. The day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.